Hello. Good evening, everybody. This is Tom Capone, the Executive Director of the NYDLA, and thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight, we're welcoming everybody to our website and to our webinar, and as the Executive Director of the NYDLA, I'm very pleased that you're visiting with us tonight. What you'll find tonight on our webinar series, as well as on our website, is a vast number of resources and information associated with distance learning on a global basis. NYDLA represents the breadth of the distance learning world from K through 12 to higher education, government, military, corporate, and telehealth. Our primary mission is to service the distance learning community, providing opportunities, advocacy, information, networking, and opportunities across the globe for distance learning. We will be hosting a number of events each year, including our annual conference, and a series of policy forums, as well as our National Distance Learning Week. If you're a current member of the NYDLA, well, welcome. And if you're not a member, we ask you to join. Tonight, we will be talking about social media as it relates to emergency communications and emergency management. This topic, unfortunately, has been in everybody's minds for the last several weeks, especially due to Superstorm Hurricane Sandy. Social media has really been the thing that has taken over the telecom and the technology world over the last several years like nothing that we've ever seen. Between Facebook, Twitter, mobility, texting, the entire world of social media is really changed the way that the world works, plays, and now deals with issues such as emergency management and emergency communications. Tonight, we have some wonderful guest speakers. Our first speakers will be Jason Lynn Smith and Carolyn Deming. They represent FEMA from the Offices of External Affairs and Digital Communications. The topic for their portion of the evening will be social media before, during, and after Hurricane Sandy, success stories, and opportunities for improvement. So, without further ado, let me pass the controls over to Jason and to Carolyn.
Hey, this is Jason. Tom, can you give me an okay?
You're okay.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, Tom, thanks for the introduction. And I'm Jason Linda Smith, and I work for FEMA in the Office of External Affairs. My day-to-day role is to manage social media for the agency at the agency-wide level. And then my colleague, Carolyn Deming, works out of FEMA's regional office in Chicago, where she manages social media there and was a big part of the team. Just want to lay a quick background about FEMA and kind of where we fit into the picture. We're, first and foremost, FEMA is a coordinating agency. I know there's a lot of text on this slide here. The big takeaway is that we are not a first responder. FEMA does not, we don't have people in FEMA jackets or FEMA shirts picking people off of roofs. FEMA employees are not running around handing out meals to survivors in the immediate impacted area. We coordinate those efforts that are happening to get to survivors so they get what they need. And we make it very clear on our social media channels that our social media accounts are not for 911 purposes. And that doesn't mean that people won't reach out to us in that way, but we do try to make it clear that the best way to get immediate help is not to contact FEMA. You don't call our 800 number when you should be calling 911 instead. There's a pretty clear delineation, and we try to make that point. So I just want to lay that groundwork as far as where FEMA fits into the emergency management world as a whole. Again, we've got 15 minutes, and I'll run through the FEMA kind of social media efforts, but I do want to paint a larger picture to start, just to say that the social media and the digital side of things that we'll be talking about is just one piece of the pie. It's one piece of the puzzle of all the outreach that we do at FEMA to talk with survivors or to talk with the impacted communities. And so there's all these communication methods here that are listed on the left that are a part of that larger piece, part of that larger puzzle, and digital just being one part of that, which includes the web, social media, and then any mobile technology that we have too. So like our mobile site, text messages that we send to folks, and that kind of thing. Okay, so let's just dive right in. So I'm going to lay out kind of how we use social media at FEMA before, during, and after Sandy with a few examples, and then Carolyn is going to follow up with some successes that we saw, and as well as some opportunities for improvement that we'd like to see on the next disaster, that hopefully things will improve in those few areas that we'll lay out. So first, let's just lay the groundwork of how we, FEMA, were using social media before, during, and after Sandy. Here's a couple examples of how we used social media before the storm hit. You can see these are just examples of Twitter messages that were put out from the main FEMA handle. The one takeaway, if you're reading these messages, big takeaway for these is that we try to give specific, actionable information within our social media messages themselves. And here, this first one on the top left is a great example of that. It's a reminder that people can check in, that they should check in with their family and friends on the East Coast and make sure that when you're checking in with those folks that they have an emergency kit and a plan if they might be impacted by Sandy. The way that message is written is very different from the alternative message that some folks put out, and the alternative being, click on this link to find safety tips for Hurricane Sandy, or if you know someone who might be impacted by Sandy, go to this website. That message in and of itself does not add particular value to the person who's reading it, right? Like, you're making them click on a link, go to an external site, go to a third-party service or whatever, and get that information, when really you could probably be giving them that information directly through your social media channels. And that's what we try to do here with all of our safety tips that we have, whether it's before, during, and after the event. We want to give value to people directly on the channels that they're already using. So that's why we try to be as specific as we possibly can at all times, and that way we don't make people click on links. We don't make people go to other websites to get the information. We want them to have the information right where they are. And you can see that in the other example, the one message that got retweeted the most and shared the most for us was this one on the bottom right, which talked about how people can search for a shelter by texting in to FEMA. If they text in shelter and their zip code, we're going to spit back to them the location of the nearest shelter. This got retweeted a lot. We had over 10,000 people look up shelter locations all around the East Coast on one day alone, which was October 29th. So the day after we posted this tweet, obviously we had that shelter message other places as well, but we saw a big jump in how many people were looking for shelters through our text message service. So that was before the storm. During the storm, again, we're trying to be as specific as we possibly could. As the storm was really making landfall there on the 29th and the 30th, we try to give people, again, if they're using social media at that time to get information, we want to give them what's most relevant and useful right at that exact moment. And here, again, are two messages of how we were trying to do that. Remind folks to stay off the roads, to let emergency crews do their work. And then also, a common thing that we see after disasters is just how often people want to use their cell phone to talk to people. And they want to call their relatives and make sure that they know they're okay. Well, a lot of times the cell networks will get overloaded because all these voice calls take up more bandwidth than an alternative, which would be sending a text message to your family to let them know you're okay, or even using your phone's internet browser to get on social media to then post a Facebook update that says, hey, my family's here, it's windy outside, but we're okay. those two alternatives, sending a text and updating your social media sites, are very lower bandwidth on cell networks than. Okay, and then after Sandy, again, just examples here of what we're trying to do. After Sandy, we're really big on promoting what the emergency management team as a whole is doing. So not just government, but what our partners are doing across the spectrum, nonprofits, whether it's churches, community groups, city government, state government, all those partners that we have. We really want to let folks know where the resources are, where they can go to get help, because FEMA is just one piece of the puzzle. We're only one part of the larger picture of how people can get help after a disaster. So here again are just two examples of that. The message on the left was a big one because folks did not have power for a while, and if they didn't have internet access, but yet they could get this message out to somebody else who was in the affected area, there was a number that people could call to get shelter location. So we were trying to get that word out as well after Sandy. Again, just three more examples, and then I'll throw it over to Carolyn. Three more examples of what we were trying to do. Again, this JCPL up in the top left, that's a power company, a utility company in New Jersey. We're sharing their updates because it's useful for the folks who are on the ground there to know where they can charge their cell phone, where they can get water, where they can get ice. Again, we FEMA are not doing all those things. We're not directly managing all those efforts, but we're helping to coordinate it. And one of the ways we use our social media channels is to help get the word out about all the things that are happening on the ground there, not just the FEMA-owned things that we have. And then that tweet on the right, obviously all about response vehicles, so promoting what the Red Cross is doing, which is a huge partner of ours. And then the bottom tweet there is, again, talking about disaster recovery centers. This is where people can physically walk into, talk to a FEMA person about assistance options, and go from there. Okay, with that, Carolyn, I'll throw it over to you. I talked about the before, during, and after, kind of how we wanted a message to those different parts of the event. And then Carolyn, if you want to talk about successes and opportunities.
Hi, everyone. And just a reminder for those who aren't speaking, please mute your phone. But yeah, thank you for allowing us to speak and sort of share some information about what we experienced during Hurricane Sandy. Social media is such an amazing platform for sharing and cross-promoting everyone's content. So Twitter and Facebook were prime platforms for people sharing, Red Cross sharing where their emergency response vehicles were, power companies sharing information. So it was really, really easy and timely and in the moment to give people the information that they needed regarding, life-sustaining information like food, water, charging stations, shelter information. So as Jason stated, it's not information that it's not our mission, but what we do act as the conduit for that information. So we started to disseminate information, and like I said, the number of people in the traffic coming to the FEMA sites was really tremendous. Our next slide is the rumor control page, and if you guys haven't checked this out, I urge you to visit FEMA.gov/Sandy to check out our rumor control page. We launched this in the midst of the disaster to combat misinformation. So just as all of that wonderful information, life-sustaining information, is shared quickly, rumors spread like wildfire. So we stood up a rumor control page, and it started as a section just on the FEMA.gov/Sandy page, and then actually grew out into its own standalone site because of the amount of information. And what was truly amazing and unexpected even for us in the moment was that our partners were contacting us, Red Cross and different federal partners, telling us that they were pushing people here. So it became a huge collaborative effort, more so in the digital space than we'd seen before. Next slide after that. Also, people had direct online access to the response. So we saw, again, more than ever before, people getting the information that they needed and commenting back and forth, which was a huge success. There was a place for people to ask questions and to get answers. We often are overwhelmed by the amount of information, the programs, the different state-by-state response. And here became both Facebook and Twitter and our website and all the traffic. It became a wonderful success for people to get the information that they needed in a timely manner. Real-time social media is so fast, so our social team did the best we could to be as responsive as possible, and we had some real wins with this. Opportunities, there were many, many things that we learned from this, but one is responsible sharing, and this also lends itself to the rumor control, that before you share something, you need to verify it. It is one click away. It's so easy to retweet. It is so easy to like something or share something or repost something. But in disasters, using social media, that's both a blessing and a burden, and the burden of it is that misinformation can just spread so fast. So photos was a big thing. Like, we also have this visual representation. So people were sharing disaster footage, and they were also sharing, there was a picture of the Statue of Liberty that spread as well. So really telling everyone in disaster and emergency response who use social media to be responsible and to make it, we used the word among our team to empower people. So we can push information, but we also need to empower individuals who are sharing to spread the same message. Another opportunity was the fact that it is a two-way conversation. So there are organizations that were not sharing information or maybe didn't have the bandwidth to do so, but people are on there. So not talking on social media says something as well. There's a captive audience out there, especially in emergency management and disaster response, and take it. There are people who are hungry for information on those mediums and utilize them. And as Jason said initially, it's one source. Television, radio, print, those things are all there. This is another avenue to communicate necessary, life-sustaining information. And since all of our partners are on there, it became a huge collaborative effort, which is, what we do at FEMA. We can't do this alone. We need our states, we need our locals, we need the county, we need individuals, we need everybody to help this. It's a community effort. And social media is a prime example of how that shows the group effort.
Then, Carolyn, this is Jason. Can I jump in to make one last point?
Please.
On this opportunity here, I think one of the other big takeaways is that emergency response organizations, you can lump FEMA in that group as well, some of them do not realize that when you start a Twitter account or a Facebook page, there's an opportunity there for people to engage with you and to have a two-way conversation. And it's not just like you sending an email out and not getting anything back. It's you post a message, people reply to you, people ask questions to you, and they expect a response back from you. And there are several, whether it's state, local, or even federal agencies, who do not engage with the questions and the comments and the concerns that they get from from social media users who are asking them questions. And from our point of view, that's a big missed opportunity, because we at FEMA try to engage with all those folks that have legitimate questions for us. And if you're not doing that, if you're not going back to those people and responding, it's reflecting poorly on your organization as a whole, and it's a missed opportunity for you to help clarify information that's out there. All right, thanks, Caroline. I just wanted to jump in and
No, great. Thank you, Jason. And just in closing, we have a lot of resources, and we try to, like I said, there are so many mediums for our message, but we want to push people to one place, and it actually led us to stand up a FEMA Sandy Twitter and a FEMA Sandy Facebook page to sort of put everything in one place on social channels, and we're still building it and we're pushing it, but we're thinking long-term recovery. So we have the FEMA.gov/Sandy page, we have the rumor control page, and we have our social media channels, and we're really trying to connect the appropriate audience with the message that they need and continue to answer the questions that come about and do our best in response to Hurricane Sandy. So, Jason, if you have anything to add, otherwise that concludes our presentation.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. And Tom, I'll throw it back over to you.
I'm the second speaker in all of this. I run a small but growing digital marketing agency that specializes in doing digital marketing campaigns for not only corporations but also government agencies. We are just about a little over 1 year old, and we do everything soup to nuts for people online, including logo design, marketing strategy, websites, all that kind of stuff. And we were recently awarded a government contract with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that uses social media, especially on LinkedIn, to help fill jobs in their agency. So we've been working with the government for just about 3 to 4 months now. And one of the great things is seeing how quickly the government is using social media to communicate and to fill its needs. And just watching the FEMA presentation, you can really see that how effective it is when the government uses it as a communications device. So during this presentation, what I'm going to talk about is some of the things overlying statistics on social media and really what we see as ways that it could be used in natural disasters. So jumping right in, usually I present to audiences, but being online, this is one of the very first pictures we show to people. And what this is a graphical representation of the Internet. And I actually got this from a TED presentation by Amber Case, who was talking about everyone becoming a cyborg because they were always holding their mobile devices. And the point that she makes, and it's a very good one, is that this doesn't look like anything mechanical. It looks like something organic. And what this really shows is how connected everything is becoming on the Internet and how easy it is to communicate. The next slide is from Facebook. And what this shows is the connections between people across the United States and part of South America. And each little line represents the connection between one friend and another. And as you can see here, the closer people are, the more connections they have, so there's more light. So this really starts to show just how connected we're all becoming in terms of social media. And this slide shows really how mobile we've all become in terms of holding a computer. The iPhone really isn't a phone. It's really a mobile computer that people use every day to communicate. And so much so that, as you can see in these pictures, they almost stop communicating with each other. They communicate via these devices. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we're living in a changing world. The Internet is getting bigger and bigger. People are connected like they've never been connected before since literally probably the printing press. And people are always carrying a computer now. So it's much easier for them to get information and to post information than it's ever been probably in the history of man. So in order to look at that, to look at how big this is becoming, we want to start looking at some stats in the United States. And as of 2011, and this is increasing, it's increasing all the time, 75% of all U.S. residents are now online. There's 311 million people in the United States. 164 million of them are online. So you can, take out older people and obviously infants and things like that, and you actually see that most of the U.S. adults are now online either via their computer or via a smartphone. And not only are they online, but they're online a lot. About a third of the U.S. consumers today spend more than 3 hours every day online. And now we've hit an inflection point where everyone has a smartphone. 46% right now of U.S. adults actually have a smartphone, and that's now 88% of U.S. adults have a mobile phone. So when you do the math, actually more than half are smartphones. And obviously now with Christmas around the corner, you go in any Verizon store or Best Buy, they're selling smartphones. You're getting the next model iPhones are coming out, and the lower ones are going for $99. So really, the older models are getting cannibalized by new smartphone models, so this number is going to keep increasing year over year. So not only are people mobile and online, but they're using social media. And right now, just about 2/3 of all U.S. Internet users are actually using social media. And when they're on social media, they're on social media. They're spending a lot of time. They don't spend so much time doing email. They don't spend a lot of time watching videos and movies. They spend a lot of time on social networks. Facebook has a stat where I believe it's almost 23 minutes is the average amount of time someone spends on Facebook. And people, when they go on Facebook, they go on every day. 50% of all Facebook users check in once a day, and I think about 50% of the U.S. users check it from their mobile phone. So it's really becoming the way that we digest our news and how we communicate with our friends and keep up with them. So 93% of U.S. Internet users are on Facebook. So this really starts to show just how big Facebook is and how connected all of us are throughout Facebook. And when people are on Facebook, as I said, alluded to earlier, they're really on Facebook. So when you look at the statistics of how much time people spend on the Internet, 1 out of every 8 minutes online is actually spent on Facebook. So one of the things that we like to tell people is Facebook has really become the water cooler of the Internet. You go there, you get the latest news, you dish your news or gossip, and then you go away and you do something else. But you keep coming back to that water cooler to find out the latest news from your friends, from the news sources that you follow. You disseminate some news, you comment, and you come back. And that's really the power of what Facebook brings to social media. So why social media when bad things happen? And the FEMA folks showed this picture as well. I'll show it again. And I really was struck by why. We saw this a lot on Facebook the day after Sandy. Why is this so important? Why did we keep seeing so many people plugged in and have mobile charging stations across all across New Jersey? I'm in Princeton, New Jersey. The library opened up. They had charging stations. We had T-Mobile come in and set up charging stations as well. And the fundamental reason is when people lose power, they lose their TV. They tend to sometimes lose radio. These little devices become the way that you get news, the way that you communicate. So it becomes very important for people to charge up their phones so that they can tell loved ones that they're okay. They can follow the news and find out when they might get power. They can get a central idea of where they might be able to get food or shelter. They can communicate with their friends, so if they need to go and take a shower, they can go and do that. So these devices and their power become critical in order for them to communicate and solve their problems. Otherwise, they feel very much alone. They feel like no one's listening to them. It's harder, obviously, to get problems solved. So this is one of those things that you look at, and it looks like, people are trying to help one another. What they're really doing is, for lack of a better word, empowering them so that they can actually communicate and solve their own problems and get back on track. When we look at some of the things about social media that make it very good and disasters, I came up with the term wicked. There's a couple wicked things in here. And the first is that social media is wicked fast at disseminating information. And this is a graphic I found online of how quickly Twitter news spread during the earthquake that happened down in Virginia about a year ago. And you can see once the earthquake hit, you start to see just a flicker of Twitter. And 6 seconds later, it starts to spread as people are able to type in something, a tweet very quickly. It gets to somebody. Somebody hits the retweet button. Those people see it. They hit the retweet button and so on. And then 23 seconds later, Twitter's lit up with all the news of the earthquake. There's another fact around social media is when Michael Jackson died, Twitter, Google, and Facebook all at once thought they were being hacked because all of a sudden their traffic spiked that would usually signal a denial of service attack, but what it was actually signaling was a big news event. So with social media right now, the news travels very, very fast. Actually, when you look at this earthquake, the item that we look at is that Twitter actually got the news out to the earthquake before actually the earthquake reached New York. So it was pretty amazing to see how fast this news can travel across social media. The second thing is social media is wicked local. And like I said before, I'm from Princeton. These are some of the screenshots from my screen showing what social media can show on the local level. I follow the Princeton Patch. They are a corporate entity that does local news. And they did a really good job of, this is a place where you can go for shelter. This is a place, these are the roads that are closed. Here's what's happening with Princeton Power. They were talking to PSE&G. So it's a very easy way for me to follow a local source to understand what's going on in my neighborhood. Same thing with the Princeton Police. They did a great job of following Twitter or of updating their Twitter account, showing here are the traffic signals that are out because of power. Here's where we're actually closing down streets to remove a tree. And as you can see, they also started to retweet commercial tweets as well to show this is a place where you can go get shelter. So you can see that local agencies can actually use social media to their advantage to spread local news so that a big agency like FEMA isn't burdened down so much with how, trying to solve local problems. They can, focus on the big stuff. Also, FEMA can follow these feeds, or other agencies can follow these feeds so that they can get more information on what's happening locally. The second point is social media is wicked accessible. One thing that people tend to forget is that every tweet is public. It's totally searchable. You can search by topic tag or keyword, etc. So this was just a quick view I got from a couple days ago, just searching the topic tag Sandy. So you can get a very good idea of what's happening across Twitter. Beyond that, there's several paid applications that you can use that do a great job of searching for keywords. One would be Radian 6, which the State Department uses, another is Sysomos, that really look at the Internet as a whole and are able to triage these tweets and where they're coming from very, very quickly on an analytical basis, and then if so, they can be sent to the proper people at the organization. One of the last things is that social media is wicked credible. What Twitter and Facebook have done, and it's very, very smart, is that they make sure that these things are verified. You can look at the FEMA Twitter channel. You can see that little check mark. It means that it's been verified. With Facebook, when you set up a Facebook page and you you choose a government organization, you actually have to go through a process. So before you can get government organization or you can get that little blue check mark, you have to become credible to those. So now people actually know this is the actual FEMA. This is on Twitter. This is the actual FEMA on Facebook. This is news that I can trust. This is, like FEMA said, this, the rumor control can stop because these people are credible and they're verified sources of information. So how does all this help when we're dealing with a natural disaster or something even like a 9/11? Well, the first and foremost is that you can get news and emergency alerts to people on their devices that they have on their person very, very quickly. With half the population now with smartphones, you can, and a ton of them have Facebook and a ton of them have Twitter. You can get that information to them very, very quickly. Local agencies can focus on local issues so that they can follow and alert people to get information in their area, stay informed, stay calm, etc. Okay. And that gets us into some problem areas that people have to look out for with social media. People expect you to tweet and post. During a situation or a disaster, overposting and tweeting is actually expected. The last thing you really want to do is underpost and not do anything, because people at that point are going to go and say, well, what's going on? Secondly, people expect a response when they actually tweet at you or Facebook message you. So when you start one of these social media channels, you need to make sure that there's someone actually manning the post at all times, and especially, obviously, during a disaster. Thirdly, you should listen and triage information to people who can act. So as this tidal wave of information comes, you need to have systems in place that route these to the right people so that they can act on it. And fourth, and this is something obviously that if you can see that FEMA did, we typically say that you should only have one account per agency. Having other accounts or having special accounts ends up causing probably more confusion because people aren't really sure, should I follow FEMA Sandy? Should I follow FEMA? Where am I getting my news? Et cetera. And then lastly is if you say something on social media, make sure it happens. If you tweet something out like the National Guard is coming, they better show up, because if they don't, then you have a whole credibility issue that you need to address. So kind of wrapping up is, how do we get there for Sandy Part 2? And I think FEMA did probably one of the best jobs out there in terms of what they did, because they went right before the storm to show exactly what you should be doing, tweeted during the storm to do things like stay off the road, and then tweeted after the storm to show where you can go and get shelter. First and foremost is build an audience. FEMA has 182,000 people following it. They've got an audience. Princeton Police probably could use a little bit more of an audience building. But if you don't have an audience, you don't have a way of spreading news. Use software to listen to social media. Radian 6 and Systemos are great pieces of software that allow people to listen to social media and triage those messages to the right people. Thirdly is train employees in social media to listen and engage. It's not something that everybody knows how to do. It's something that you take a couple hours to show people how to mention somebody on Twitter, how to respond correctly on Facebook, etc. And then when disaster does happen, they're able to respond immediately. Fourth, make sure your triage procedures are in place so that when things happen, you know that if there's a tweet about something that's happening in North Jersey, it goes to the right person in North Jersey, not to South Jersey. And then lastly, in any kind of bureaucracy, government or corporate, you need to have buy-in from the top so that you have the latitude and the maneuverability to respond quickly. You're not checking every tweet or every Facebook message, because those things just cost you time. And at this point, during a disaster, time is really one of your biggest enemies. That's all I have. I want to thank everybody for having me. This was great. And then I'll turn it back to Tom. So I think right now we're waiting for Tom. But if there's any questions, feel free to either ask them in the chat panel or unmute and fire a question to either me or FEMA.
Hey, John, this is Jason. I think we did get one. I know we have one question. I think it was from the chat room, so I can address that. I think at least one of the questions was, what's the big social media success, or the one kind of overarching big success or takeaway that we saw after Sandy? And I'll address that question now while we're getting other questions in. For at least from the FEMA kind of emergency management perspective, this isn't the most exciting answer, but the big success for Sandy was that social media continues to grow in importance as time goes on. I've been at FEMA for 2.5 years, and I've seen a pretty good share of disasters at this point, especially in this role of running social media for the agency. And you saw it during Hurricane Irene in 2011. You saw it during the Tuscaloosa tornadoes in Alabama during the spring of 2011. You saw it in the Joplin tornado. That was in the spring of 2011. Each time, as time goes on, the importance of social media in each disaster was of greater importance. And people placed more emphasis on using social media channels to organize collectively, to talk about their experiences, to talk about how response organizations were helping them or how they weren't helping them. And they used this just as an overall platform for venting and for helping and for being a part of what's happening in the world. And as time has gone on, that use has only increased. And in Sandy, it was just another example of that. More people were sharing photos than ever before. More people were tweeting than ever before. More people were using Facebook than ever before to talk about the event. And at least for me, on the emergency management side, just using my own professional experience, that was the biggest takeaway and kind of the biggest success, was that it's verifying that trend line for us, that social media is only going to continue to grow in importance as time goes on. And I know that, again, it's probably not the most mind-blowing kind of conclusion, but it's a conclusion nonetheless, and one that is going to inform how we within FEMA and how others in emergency management will invest in social media, whether it's through people and dollars, and doing those things that John was talking about to be effective. That's only going to grow in importance as time goes on. So that was for me, the big takeaway from Sandy as far as what was a big success.
That's great. Very good. Any other questions? Let's see. There was a couple more from chat. Do we see any social media moving to a machine-to-machine type of an environment? Another question that came in.
Yeah, I'll field that one. We've seen a lot of social media in business. I think one of the companies that has done probably one of the best jobs of harnessing it is Salesforce. Salesforce has allowed people to write APIs. So, for instance, if you get paid and it shows up in your bank, it will send a quick update to the news feed within Salesforce saying, hey, this person paid you. So that would be an example of, say, machine to machine. But I think from what I've seen, the machine-to-machine stuff has been best used for doing alerts and updates to tell a human to go and do something. The great thing about social media is that it's still social. It's still humans talking to humans. So when people share pictures of their kids, they're able to stay in touch, and that's really still the big power.
Great. Okay, great. I'm going to now pass the microphone over to Mitch Erickson. And Mitch is the chairman of our advisory board and leadership council. And Mitch is going to have a few words about NYDLA and some of our some things that we have on the roadmap for 2013.
First of all, sound check. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. NYDLA, New York Distance Learning Association. Let's parse that a little bit. First of all, New York does not mean New York City. It means the broader metro area, and in fact, it sort of means anybody who's in a New York state of mind. So in terms of people that are out there and listening to this webinar, if you happen to live in Anchorage, Alaska, and you want to join the NYDLA, you're welcome to do so. Distance learning. As Tom has loved to say, all learning is distance learning, and we're struggling, I think, as a global community to really understand and define distance learning. But from our perspective, it has everything from the issue here is everything from the delivery of technology and content to the psychology of learning, and everything from for-credit to academic classes to employee training to things about a hobby or an avocation. And the word association to me means that we are the people who glue the people together who are interested in distance learning. We are not a distance learning provider. We are not we're not going to do the research on how effective distance learning is, but we're going to be a platform for those kinds of things. So bottom line, we're looking to encourage ideas, information on distance learning. We're working to think through the issues, the technology challenges, the psychology challenges, and all the other hurdles that go on. And distance learning is hurtling forward. We have academic courses with well over 100,000 people signed up, and they sign up at 100,000 and maybe 25,000 actually get the course completed. But 25,000 for a single course is still a pretty awesome number. So we are looking to you, the listeners, to come back to us with ideas about what NYDLA could be doing, how we might break down into subcategories along the lines of, say, military, engineering, underwater basket weaving. We're kind of open to the kinds of divisions that we might have. We're looking at an award program for excellence, and we're looking at people using this platform and joining in, because this is not just the core people here doing it. This has to be, like any association, a large number of volunteers doing a large number of little things. And so that's the pitch from us. Please join. Please contribute. Please get back to us and send us your ideas. Step forward if you want to host a webinar in the future, or if you want to push your idea, and we'll always be able to talk with you. I think at that point I'm going to stop unless somebody has something else that they need to ask me a question, and we'll go to Tom for closing remarks.
Mitch, that was very good. Great overview. And obviously we'll be talking more about 2013. Everybody, as we know, distance learning is really a combination of technology plus talent. And what we're very fortunate is we're going to be having the webinars on a monthly basis. Eugene Kaspersky will be our keynote speaker for our next webinar, which is slated for December 18th. If you have the urge, you can go ahead and Google Kaspersky, Eugene Kaspersky. He's recognized as one of the leading world subject matter experts in all things security, internet security, etc. One of the topics that we're going to be talking about on the 18th is, the anonymous nature of the internet. It just provides a dangerous new forum for cyber predators, and we've been seeing this all too often in the past. And according to statistics from Kaspersky's security network, social networking sites are more popular than webmail or pornographic sites, which is one of the reasons why cyber predators hunt their prey in this environment. And this is attacking our precious children. So we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, especially as it relates to protecting the youth, protecting the students, protecting the kids that are on the internet. Eugene Kaspersky as well as Roberto Martinez will be presenting, and we'll be analyzing the dangers that children face on the internet and what students, parents, and teachers can do to help protect them. So that will be scheduled, like I said, for December 18th. We're really excited to have this ongoing series of webinars. We appreciate everybody's participation. The webinars will be archived, and just as we have on our events, from the past, we'll be continuing to host and archive all previous webinars so that you'll be able to pull them up in the future. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think that we practiced this because we're coming right up on 8 o'clock, so we're right on the hour. Thank you, everybody, for taking your time this evening. We really appreciate your support and your participation, and we certainly hope that you're going to join us again for our next webinar, which will be slated for December 18th. Take care, everybody. Thanks again.